The purpose of this video is to address some questions I've been getting from various colleagues and some of you guys out there. Basically, how is it going transitioning borrowers from a COVID forbearance back to getting current? I have finalized about 10 of these agreements at this point. I have more in the works right now, and so I'm just trying to give real life updates as to how these transition plans are going. If you're a subscriber to my page, welcome back. If not, make sure you subscribe, like the video, let me know if you have a question or a comment. I always love hearing from you guys, and I always do my best to respond to you as quickly as possible. So if you're one of these homeowners who had a financial hardship due to COVID, like so many of us did, and you went on a COVID forbearance, you are likely considering now trying to transition off of that. And what that means is you likely have fully recovered your household income and you're ready to just resume making mortgage payments, but you don't want to pay the full amount that you missed, right? And they told you, right? The mortgage servicers told you at the beginning, everything will be fine, just go on this COVID forbearance plan, and then at the end, you can just pick up making payments. Well, I'm on the ground, I'm in the trenches, I've got my clients, working on these now, and it is not that simple. Banks are not just mailing out agreements that say, hey, you're ready to go, make your first payment, just keep going, we'll defer the amount. There's all this language floating around about how deferral options, like taking the amount and just automatically putting it on the end of the loan, is something servicers should be doing. They're not really doing that. There's a lot of other talk coming out around how homeowners should not have to be submitting a ton of documents in order to get on a loan modification. On the ground, when you're working with the big banks, they are still requiring document packages. So the purpose of this video is just to make sure you guys understand that you need to be equipping yourself with the right information in order to get through this transition. I have finalized modification agreements and deferral plans from Loan Care, Flagstar, US Bank, Mr. Cooper, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo at this point. And so the first thing to understand is many homeowners are first and foremost receiving approval for these very high repayment plans. So what's happening is banks are starting the process of, reviewing you for a loan modification or whatever you asked for, a payment deferral. You think you're just going to be getting an agreement saying, okay, you're good to start making your mortgage payments. Then what happens is you get a letter in the mail and it says congratulations, you are approved for a repayment plan. And a repayment plan is different from a loan modification. A repayment plan asks you to make one mortgage payment every month, meaning resuming your mortgage payment, and the bank wants you to pay a little bit extra every month until you get current. And so what this is resulting in is some people are being asked to make double payments for a 6-month period of time, or however long their forbearance was until they're current. The banks are offering these because they are allowed to put you through a waterfall. What that means is banks are allowed to ask for the agreement that would be most beneficial to them first before they give you an agreement that would be most beneficial to you. So I have had 3 people with big name banks, US Bank being one of them. I'm currently, in it with them right now, appealing and fighting to get them on a normal agreement. But these big banks are asking for big payments before they will look at the options that they're supposed to look at, which are these streamlined loan modifications. So if I'm describing what's happening to you, meaning if you have applied for just a standard loan modification where you want the bank to just approve you in writing to resume making your payments, and you suddenly get approved for these large repayment plans that are requiring you to make a double payment, please understand that you need to go through the appeal process at that point, and that is not your only option. If it's easy for you to make those repayments, if it's easy for you to make double payments, if your income is fully recovered and it's fine, that would be the lowest maintenance option that you might want to choose. But for most people, they were expecting to be offered to just go back making regular payments. And so it can be quite jarring to see one of these letters. So what you need to do if you receive one of those is read the letter and find the section in the letter that tells you what you need to do to appeal the decision. So I'm going through 3 appeals. I just had one approved. Basically, you need to write to your bank. You need to tell them that you cannot afford the repayment plan that they've offered you, that payment would make it so that you could not pay regular household expenses. I would suggest attaching a household expense form. There's a link to that form in the description box of this video, but I would suggest attaching that form and showing them, look, these are all of my household expenses. If you're basically trying to write out for them, if you require me to make a double payment for 6 months, I will not be able to make my other bills. So that's kind of the first thing you say in your appeal. The second thing you want to tell them is, I can make a regular mortgage payment, right? You don't want to present yourself as having such unaffordable expenses that they don't even think you can afford your regular mortgage payment. So you basically have to write a letter and you have to tell them what you offered me is unaffordable, right? Here's why. Show them the numbers. This is why it's unaffordable. Then you tell them the last part of information. What is affordable is for me to resume my regular mortgage payments, and here's why. And then you show them the numbers and how you could afford to make your regular mortgage payment. Then if you don't have an attorney and you're doing this yourself, you're going to want to stick in some of the language around the kind of federal statutes and federal guidelines that are trying to help you. So you'd want to mention the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and how their policies right now are telling mortgage servicers that they have to be doing everything they can to help borrowers get on an affordable agreement. You might want to mention the CARES Act, and you might want to mention your own investors' guidelines. If you have Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or FHA, there are things out there right now that say that if you're a COVID hardship person who went on a COVID forbearance, you have a right to a streamlined modification, potentially a partial claim or a deferral, and you want to kind of use that language and tell the bank that you believe they're in violation of those policies. There are other videos posted on this page around what a deferral is, what a partial claim is, what a loan modification is. So figure out kind of what you actually want so that when you write your appeal letter, you're telling them what you want. And then you want to send the appeal in the way that the bank wants it, right? In your approval letter for your repayment plan, the bank will tell you, we want you to appeal in this manner. So if they tell you to mail the documents to a certain address, mail the documents there. If they tell you to fax them somewhere, fax it somewhere. Whatever the instructions are for how to submit the appeal, do that. But then also do the other mechanism as well. So if the appeal letter says mail it to a PO box, mail it there, but also fax it in. If the appeal letter says fax it in, also mail it to the PO box. Do everything you can to bombard the letter or the lender with your appeal letter so that it gets to the right person. Once you send your letter in, don't just sit back and wait for the bank to do anything. Then you need to be on the phone every day, and you need to be speaking with supervisors, and you need to be doing what's called opening and escalation. So when you work with loss mitigation departments at your lender, you need to be using the language that makes sense to them. So when you get to a customer service representative, you've sent this appeal, you don't want to make these high payments, the representative will say, how can I help you? And you need to speak real clearly, and you need to say to them, hey, I applied for a loan modification. I'm a COVID forbearance hardship person. I need to resume making regular payments. I got approved for a completely unaffordable repayment plan. I have sent in my appeal and I need to escalate this matter now and speak to a supervisor. If you say that to them, they will understand that there is reason for you to get to a supervisor, and they will get you there. Once you get to the supervisor, take their contact information, ask for their name, take their employee ID number, and stay on the phone with them until they tell you what their plan of action is. Probably what they're going to say is they're going to have to open a new review, meaning you're going to have to kind of start over and go back through the loan modification or deferral process. That's okay. That is part of their process. That would be a good thing. But you need to be calling in basically every day or every other day to make sure that, number one, that new request gets open, that they have all of the documents that they are requiring. Like we've said, banks are not supposed to be taking documents, but they are still. They're really not doing very well at the streamlined stuff. So make sure your new review is open, make sure it's moving forward, and stick with those supervisors until you can get a new review. So that's basically what you need to do if you get approved for a high repayment plan. Other issues that are coming up are basically the federal government is saying that mortgage servicers won't be requiring documents for loan modification packages. It's not being implemented in that way. Servicers are refusing to open up loan modification reviews without documents. So if you know you're going to be applying for a loan modification review, the fastest, most efficient way to get it done is to just submit a loan modification package. So watch the videos on this page, understand what documents are required, calculate your debt to income ratios per my instructions. So watch the video around front end debt to income ratio, back end debt to income ratio, and get your documents looking good, and then follow all the instructions about how to kind of get your loan modification review done. So just because the CFPB is saying there will be streamlined options, you don't have to submit documents, that's not really how it's playing out right now on the ground. That may change, right? Mortgage servicers, as more and more people start to transition off of these plans, they may just start offering them and mailing them out, which would be great. Right now, that's not exactly happening. So you want to kind of take responsibility for yourself, make sure you're submitting the right documentation or just over submitting documents so that they can open the review. And then if you do get approved for one of these high repayment plans, follow the appeal process I discussed in this video and you should be okay. Good luck.